In this video, we're going to have an introduction into data management techniques using Excel. What we have here is what is known as a flat file. We have book sales for 2019, 2020, and a little bit into 2021. We have each school name, the state, the region, the salesperson, the commission rate, the order ID, the order date, the book name, the number of books sold, the price per book, and the total revenue. So what we're going to learn here is sorting. We're going to learn filtering. We're going to learn how to extract some records, and then we're going to get a little bit of an introduction into Power Pivot. So first, sorting. The first thing we might like to do is sort by state. So in order to sort by state, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click any entry in column B. Now what I do not want to do is I do not want to select column B either this way or by selecting the whole column B. What I want to do is I want to click an individual entry in column B. The reason for this is if I select the entire column B, it would sort column B but not keep the rest of the records together. So the way that I always explain this to my classes is if I were using Excel to set your grades and I sorted your names, just selecting the column, what would happen is your grade would be attached to a different student and I would never know it. So in order to sort, I'm just going to click any state name in column B, and there are two places that you can sort. On the Home tab, all the way on the right in the Editing group, there's a Sort and Filter button. You can click the down arrow and sort ascending A to Z or descending Z to A, or go into the custom sort. So I'll just click Sort A to Z, and notice in a blink of an eye it selected the entire worksheet. And now we have first Alabama, and then after Alabama, this is actually quite a long Connecticut, quite a long file. As you can see, we go down a lot of rows, 2,157 rows in this data set. Now, let's say instead of sorting by state, you wanted to sort by a number. So let's say we wanted to see which orders had the highest revenue. So once again, I'm just going to click any button in column L. It doesn't matter which one, any cell in column L. It doesn't matter which one. But once again, very important is not to select column L, just to click any cell in column L. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the Data tab. And notice in the Data tab, we have an entire Sort and Filter group. So this time, I would want to sort from highest to lowest, so I would click the Z to A button in that Sort and Filter group. And now I have sorted from the best-selling books with the highest revenue to the lower-selling books. Now, moving on, we can actually do an even more complicated sort. So let's say we wanted to sort first by salesperson and then by book name. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is, still making sure that I'm on that Data tab, in the Sort and Filter group, I'm going to click the button for Sort. And notice now we can have several different levels. We can choose, we can specify whether the data has headers or not. So this time, what I'm going to do is first I'm going to sort by salesperson. And this one I want to sort from A to Z. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Add Level. Then I'm going to sort by the book name. And that one also A to Z. Although notice I have options, and I can also sort by a custom list. So if you always wanted to be something to be east, west, north, south, it's not alphabetical order, you can create a custom list and have it sort that way. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to click OK. And now notice I have it sorted by salesperson, Angie Meany, and within Angie Meany, all of the different books that Angie Meany sells are together. Now that my data is sorted, I can use another function called subtotals. So in order to add subtotals, I'm going to make sure to click that Data tab, and notice all the way to the right I have an outline group, and one of the icons that I have there is subtotal. Now it's very important to sort first before you do subtotals, because if you don't, you're just going to get a subtotal after every line. So for example, if I subtotal column A, I would say subtotal by school name. I would get a subtotal for this one order for Faber College, and then this one order of University of New Mexico. So first I'm going to tell it to subtotal by my salesperson, and then to subtotal by the book name. So I'm going to click any cell within the list, it doesn't matter, making sure that I'm still on the Data tab. I'm going to click subtotal. So now notice at each change in, so this time at each change in salesperson, I'm going to use the function sum. Notice I could do the average or count how many sales each salesperson has made, or get the maximum sale or the minimum sale, or multiply all the sales together. But I'm just going to choose sum, the sum total of all of the revenue. And I'm going to add the subtotal to revenue. You could also add it to books sold, but I'm just going to add it to revenue. So I'm going to click OK. And now as I scroll down, when I get down to the bottom of Angie Meany, I can see that Angie Meany had total revenue of $16 million. Benjamin Hernandez had total revenue of $15,820,000. Brenda Sullivan, I skipped past Brenda, $28 million. And notice the outlining tools on the left-hand side. So I could click the number 2 and get the total for each salesperson. Click the number 1, just get the grand total of revenue. And click the number 3 and get all the details. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a second subtotal. So not only do we get it by salesperson, but we also get it by book as well. So I'm going to re-click that subtotal icon in the outline group, making sure that you're still on that Data tab. I'm going to click subtotal. Now I'm going to have it at each change in book name. I'm going to use the function sum, and I'm going to add the subtotal to revenue. But what's very important when you do the second subtotal is you uncheck the replace current subtotals. So we'll still get the subtotal for salesperson, but also for book name. So I'm going to click now OK. And notice when I now click my level 4, I get the full detail. When I click my level 3, I get for each salesperson and the book name. So I have my Angie Meany total, and I have my Benjamin Hernandez total, and I have the total for each book. Don't worry, we will do this much easier later using pivot tables. So now to get rid of the subtotals, all I have to do is making sure that I'm still on the Data tab, click the subtotal icon, and just click Remove All, and my list is back to normal. Now let's move on to filtering. As opposed to sorting, where we're going to ask Excel to show the list in a certain order, with filtering, we're going to ask Excel to show records that match a certain criteria. So we may ask Excel to only show records from the University of New Mexico, or we may ask to show records only from the Southwest region, or only for the salesperson Brenda Sullivan. So let's get started with filtering. Our first filtering job is we only want to display those records that are from South Carolina. So I'm going to click any cell within the list. It doesn't have to be in the South Carolina column. Any cell within the list. I'm going to make sure that I'm still on that Data tab. And now in the Sort and Filter group, instead of going on the Sort side, I am now going to click the icon for Filter. So notice when I click the icon for filter, I have a down arrow after every header. So I have a down arrow for salesperson number, a down arrow for salesperson. So in order to display those records only for South Carolina, I'm going to click the down arrow in column B for state. So notice right now, every state is checked. I could show one state, I could show two states, I could show every state except one. So I'm going to click where it says select all to unselect all. And then I'm going to scroll down and select South Carolina and click OK. And notice on the left-hand side, our numbers don't go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, it starts off at 1646, so it's hiding the records that do not match our criteria. And we can see all of our sales are in South Carolina. If we wanted to show South Carolina and North Carolina, I would click the down arrow next to state. And now, instead of clicking only South Carolina, I will check North Carolina as well. And now I have records for both South Carolina and North Carolina and have all my sales. Now, in order to get rid of the filter, I have several options. Notice that my state, column B, is the only one that has the filter symbol. All the rest have the down arrows. That means that column B is the only one that's filtered. So I can click the down arrow for column B and tell it to clear the filter from state. But if I have several columns that are filtered, making sure that I'm on the Data tab in the Sort and Filter group, the Clear button up here would clear all of my filters. And to get rid of the down arrows, all I have to do is click the filter icon, and they go away. Now let's look at a number filter. So I'm going to click the filter again, and this time we're going to look for sales in South Carolina that are greater than $200,000. So I'm going to click the down arrow. So I've reapplied the filter from that Data tab. Just click that filter icon. I'm going to click the down arrow. I'm going to click where it says select all to unselect all. And I'm only going to choose South Carolina. And I'm going to click OK. Now in the revenue column, I'm going to click the down arrow. And what a lot of my students will do is just uncheck the select all and just check the items that meet the criteria, but realize that there could be thousands. So the best way is to use what is known as the number filter. I said greater than $200,000. So when I hover over number filter, notice I have an option for greater than and also for greater than or equal to. I said greater than $200,000. So I'm going to click greater than and just type the number 200,000 and click OK. And notice now my state and my revenue both have the filter icon, and I have filtered my list for those orders that were over $200,000 in South Carolina. So now noting that I have multiple filters, in that Sort and Filter group on the Data tab, if I just click Clear, it clears all the filters and nothing is filtered. Now let's say instead that you wanted to extract all of the sales by Benjamin Hernandez. We can do that with the advanced filter. Unfortunately, to extract, you have to extract it to the same worksheet. But one of the benefits is that when I filter over here using the regular filter, so let's say I just filter to Connecticut and click OK. If I try to copy and paste this, there are hidden rows, and I could get unfortunate results. It could actually pick up the hidden rows. So I may want to just extract the records. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Clear, and to extract the records and take off my filter, I'm going to click the filter to remove those down arrows. Now to extract the records, I'm going to use the advanced filter. So I'm going to tell Excel what column I'm interested in. that is the salesperson column. I want to extract all of those sales for Benjamin Hernandez. So I'll type Benjamin Hernandez right under that. And then we're going to extract to a different place. So I'm going to scroll out to the right. I'm going to skip at least 2 columns to make sure that Excel knows that this new data does not belong with the previous list. So once again, I want to type the header for the column or columns that I'm interested in extracting. So I wanted to extract Benjamin Hernandez as the salesperson. So I'm going to type the word salesperson in O1. You could even copy the header, which I recommend highly, because if I have a typo or it's not typed exactly the same way, the extract will fail. Now, under salesperson, I'm going to type Benjamin Hernandez. And now I'm going to complete my extraction. So making sure that I'm on the Data tab, I'm going to click any cell within the original list, and I'm going to click the Advanced button on the Filter side in the Sort and Filter group. So I'm going to click that Advanced for advanced filtering options. So I've got my entire list, so that's why I clicked within the list. If it didn't select the list, you would have to select the list. So I have my list range. Now I click in the box for criteria range, and I'm going to select both the header and the criteria. So this is telling Excel that I'm only interested in the records for Benjamin Hernandez in the salesperson header. Now notice right now it says filter the list in place. So if I clicked OK right now, it would be the same as using that basic filter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the button for copy to another location. And unfortunately, you can't copy to another sheet. So I'm going to click in the copy to box. I'm going to skip a couple of rows, and I'm just going to click on cell O5. And then I'm going to click OK. And now I have completely extracted all of the records for Benjamin Hernandez. And the nice thing about this is that these are not formulas. So I could have done the same thing with like a VLOOKUP or something like that, but all of these would have been formulas. In this case, everything is all text, so I can now copy it and paste it someplace else. Now, in using the advanced filter, I could actually use more than one criteria. If the criteria are on the same line, it's an AND. If they're on different lines, it's an OR. So let me show you very quickly. So I'm just going to delete these rows. I'm sorry, these columns, not these rows. I'm going to delete these columns so we can see our data as we're doing this. So I'm going to select these columns, hover over the column headers, right-click, and just choose Delete. Now, let's say I wanted to extract all of the sales for Benjamin Hernandez that were above $65,000 in revenue. So this time, what I'm going to be interested in is 2 columns. I'm going to put salesperson, and now in the next column, I'm going to type revenue. And I also recommend very highly, instead of typing them, to copy the headers. Because again, if I had a typo, if I typed revenue instead of revenue or something like that, the entire extract would fail. So under salesperson, I'm interested in Benjamin Hernandez. And revenue, I said above $65,000. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in cell P2, and I'm going to type a greater than sign, shift period, and then 65000. Now I'm going to do the extract the same way, but now my criteria range has 2 columns as opposed to 1 column. So I'm going to click a couple of cells below. Now I'm going to click within the original list, Data tab, Advanced Filter. So in the Sort and Filter group, click Advanced. I have my entire list. I'm going to click my criteria range, and I'm going to select O1 to P2, both of my criteria. Make sure to click the radio button for copy to another location. Click in the copy to box and just skip a couple of rows, and just randomly click on cell O5, and then click OK, and you're going to notice that all of Benjamin's sales, each one of them, is now greater than $65,000. We did not pick up any sales that were less than $65,000. Now moving on to the last thing that I wanted to go over today, which is an introduction to pivot tables. Everything that we've just done with the sorting and the filtering can be done much easier using a pivot table. A pivot table allows us to do what is known as slicing and dicing the data. So we can look at it by state and school, or by salesperson and book, a date range, whatever it is that we want to look at. So I'm going to click any cell within the original list. I'm not going to go to the extract, but I'm going to go back to the original list, maybe in column B or column C. Now I'm going to click the tab for Insert, and all the way on the left-hand side, Pivot Table. So I'm going to click Pivot Table. It asks us to select the range. Because we had clicked the cell within the original list, it selected the correct one. Notice how it didn't select our extracted data. That's the reason why I skipped a couple of columns. And I always like to do a pivot table on a new worksheet. If you chose existing worksheet, you'd have to click in the location box and click a cell, but I find pivot tables very busy, so I always like to do them on a new worksheet. And don't worry, the data model is coming in Chapter 6, something to look forward to when we go into database management. So right now I'm just going to click OK. And the first thing that I would like to do is just very quickly summarize my revenue by state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the field state from the field list. Notice at the top it says pivot table fields. So I'm just going to drag state into the row area, and generally where it says sigma values, you're going to put your numbers. So I'm going to take the revenue, I'm going to just drag it into the sigma values area, and now I have a listing of my revenue by state. Now if I click the down arrow in the sigma values area where it says sum of revenue, I can click what it says value field settings, and I could get the count, so I can get the number of sales in each state, or the average sale, or the max or the min, the product. There's a lot of different options, but sum is the usual one that we summarize by. So I'm going to allow that. I'm going to click OK. Now I can also create a pivot chart from this data as well. So from my pivot table analyze, I should be on the pivot table analyze. If you're not, make sure your active cell is one cell within the pivot table, and you should see your pivot table analyze tab. So I'm going to click the pivot table analyze tab. I have my analyze ribbon, and on the right hand side in the tools group, I'm going to click pivot chart. So it suggests a clustered column, and I click OK, and I now have very easily a nice little chart that shows me my revenue by state. Okay, let's move on. Now suppose you wanted to modify that pivot table. So not only by state, but you wanted to show it by state and salesperson. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag salesperson into the legend series. And now notice our chart has now changed. And now we have our revenue by state and also by salesperson. Notice now I have two tabs in my original Excel file. I have one that's sheet 1, that's the pivot table, and I have one that says order data. So the last thing that we're going to do is create one more pivot table. I'm going to go back to the Order Table tab. I'm going to click any cell within the original list, not the extracted list, but any cell within the original list. Insert, and then Pivot Table. Select the range. I like a new worksheet. We're not going to do the data model quite yet. I'm going to click OK. And this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag region into the rows area. Notice where it puts it. I'm going to drag book name into the columns area. So notice, now I could always switch the order. So if I felt that this is too wide, I could always drag book name into the row area and then region into the column area. And now once again, I will just drag revenue into the Sigma values area, and I now have my revenue by book by region. I hope you enjoyed our introduction into sorting and filtering in pivot tables, and in Chapter 6 we'll be doing a lot more in pivot tables and looking at that data model.